Hey guys, so today's video is again about the aftermath of the Second Crusade, but this time from 1174 to 1184. So this is mainly about crisis and conflict in the Crusader states, and during this period Saladin continued to consolidate his power with Damascus and Aleppo, and the Crusader states have a regent as a ruler, and there was infighting and lots of factions in the Crusader states and a lack of support from Europe and Byzantium. And the power that Saladin had makes it more his victory in Jerusalem than a Crusader loss. And there were turning points because by 1183 Damascus and Aleppo were both under the control of Saladin. So, what were Saladin's achievements by this time? So, Saladin was an experienced and ambitious warrior, and he was determined to impose his authority on the Muslim Near East. After Nur al-Din's death in 1174, the Zengid regime was fractured, but members of the dynasty still held positions of power in Syria and Mesopotamia, and Saladin knew that he would have to display loyalty to Nur al-Din's son al-Saleh. And the first thing that Saladin did following Nur al-Din's death was write to al-Saleh to reassure him, and Saladin gained further authority by marrying Nur al-Din's widow. He was a very good leader, and he began his bid to rule the Muslim Near East by attacking Damascus. In 1174, he peacefully marched into Damascus, and many people were rejoiced at Saladin's takeover. He justified his occupation as a step on the road to retaking Jerusalem. And by the end of 1174, many of Syria's warlords had decided to support Saladin. He controlled Homs, Hama, and Baalbek. With little bloodshed. Conquest of Aleppo proved more difficult, but this is because he wasn't able to take control of Aleppo until 1183. And like Nur al-Din, Saladin spent the first 10 years of his rule fighting other Muslims. So how did things change in the Crusader states? So Baldwin IV had leprosy, so could only rule through a regent, and but between 1164 to 1184, Saladin captured Egypt and Syria, and the Crusader states were just getting weaker and weaker. Because especially since they were unable to counter Muslim attacks. However, the position of the Franks wasn't entirely hopeless, as in 1177 they defeated the Muslims and almost killed Saladin at Montgisard. And overall, the Crusader states kept getting weaker, and this is because of three main factors. First was Baldwin IV's leprosy. Second was division within the ruling elite of the Crusader states, and the third was the lack of support from the Byzantine Empire and Europe. So first, about Baldwin IV's leprosy. So as he grew older, he became more disabled. This made him incapable of ruling at times, because fevers caused him to be unable to rule, and in his early 20s he became partly paralyzed and nearly blind. So division within the ruling elite of the Crusader states is the second main factor, and this is because different factions began to compete for power, and in the 1180s tensions between the two groups increased when Baldwin's sister Sibylla married Guy of Lusignan, and this became the central issue of politics in the Crusader states and distracted the Franks from focusing on the threat from Saladin. When the Franks did return their attention to Saladin, they used different approaches which weren't as effective. as approaches they had used before, and Raymond of Tripoli advocated truces with the Muslims, but Reynald of Chatillon kept provoking Saladin with his aggressive campaigns, and the leadership in the Crusader states was very weak and unorganized. So the third factor was the lack of support from Byzantium and Europe. And in 1180, Manuel died, and the new emperor, Andronicus I, showed little interest in supporting the Holy Land, and neither did the monarchs in Europe, European monarchs. So in 1184, three of the most important and powerful men in the Crusader states were sent to Europe seeking support. But no one felt able to lead a new crusade, and the three diplomats returned to Jerusalem empty-handed. So yeah, that's it for today's video. Thank you.